I think the grace of Heavenly Mother, compassion of Buddha Maitreya, Qigong Buddha, virtue of Patriarch, Sizun and Simu, and also Grandmaster and Senior Masterly and Junior Masterly for allowing me to host this session. Today we are going to share chapter 21. The title is 从道章. I named this chapter title as The Path That the Sage Walk On. Are you on that? So I think this message conveys very closely to the chapter title here. So let's look at this chapter title given by the ancient Tao Te Ching scholar. The first character is 从. 从, it means to follow. So imagine if you are a disciple of Buddha or a disciple of Jesus, what would you do? You have faith, you totally believe in that person. You want to follow that person, whether you stand on the side or behind the person, behind the spiritual teacher. So when you follow that person, your psychological mind and your emotion and your behavior will be totally involved. I would say like almost like a duplicate of the teacher, say Jesus or Buddha. So I use the term immerse. You totally immerse yourself into the person's teaching who you are following with. And another adjective that I want to use is also immerse. You are immersing yourself with that person. Your mind and the soul are totally together with that spiritual teacher. And since it's a spiritual teacher that you are following, so whatever the spiritual teacher said, you will also submit to it too. So this is the introduction of this chapter title, 从. 从 is a very important character in this chapter. It means we totally follow. Maybe it's the Tao, the spiritual teacher, the heavenly Lord, the law of the universe, or anything that's spiritual. And of course, we know what Tao is. So this is the chapter title. This chapter is kind of short, and it seems like it talks about a lot of obscurity, vagueness. So on this chapter, it starts from the main line, which is the intro, and this is the most important line of this chapter. The greatest virtue is in wholeheartedly following Tao. So if the whole chapter you cannot remember a thing, I want you to understand and know that the first line is very important. It conveys the whole chapter. It also conveys the attitude that we should have when we read Tao Te Ching. The greatest virtue is in wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly, this word describes this character here. We follow the Tao wholeheartedly. We totally immerse ourselves in the ocean of Tao, in the wisdom of Tao. So this is the intro and the thesis. This is the most important part. So the part after that is the body. Lao Tzu begin with, we need to follow Tao. And what is Tao? So Lao Tzu explained what is Tao. So this is Lao Tzu's explanation. If you look at it, it seems like he did not explain at all because there's a lot of ambiguous language. It's vague, it's indistinct, it's profound, it's dark. It seems like you don't get anything out of it, but we will go into it line by line. So in the end, he asks us a question, or he asked himself a question. He used Tao to observe the great man's virtue. And he asked a question, how would I assess the great man's accomplishment with this? So this is referring to the first line here. So this chapter is very important because in this physical realm, we all come with this physical body. And we strive whatever we can to acquire all the skill from school, from work, to gain the knowledge, to gain the tools so that we can thrive physically. But in our school, it does not really mention about how can we thrive spiritually. And Lao Tzu wants us to not to forget about our true self, because we have this true self and the false self. False self is what we need to thrive in this physical realm. But eventually we will all die. And what is left? What is left is our true self. So in our lifetime, if we don't follow this path, if we don't immerse ourselves into Tao, if we don't submit ourselves to the Tao, then what is left? Our true self will be totally lost. The sad thing is we have to come back again to learn our lesson. The purpose of reincarnation is to learn whatever we did not learn in the previous life. That's why we come again. We come again and again and again. Buddha does not need to come again, because Buddha understand everything. Buddha walk on this path. All the ascended sages walk on this path. There's no ascended sages who have not walked on this path and become a Buddha, become ascended sages. So everybody, all the spiritual teachers have walked on this path. This is the most worthwhile path that you will ever walk on. So imagine you have not walked on this path, and imagine you did not have the affinity to understand the Tao, to understand the teaching. How pathetic we are, or we will be when we die, when we take our last breath. Our soul will be left alone, and then we'll just come back again to go through the reincarnation. So Lao Tzu wants us to find a reliance for our true self, for the reliance for our soul, so that our life, our spiritual life, can continue beyond, even after our body perish. So let's begin with our first line. The greatest virtue is in wholeheartedly following Tao. So the most important character here is Kong De. Kong De. When we talk about Kong De, before we define the term, I want to give you a definition of Kong. What is Kong? Kong in Chinese, there's two meanings. First meaning is, it means enormous. So enormous, huge, countless. And it's so huge, it becomes omnipresent. It cannot be counted. Just to give you an example, we all know Confucius, right? Confucius' last name, Kong, is the same character of Kong here. So Confucius has great virtue. His virtue, to me, is enormous. He's one of the authors of I-Ching, Intellect, and also many teaching too. So he has this enormous teaching. He was born 2,500 years ago, and his virtue still carry on. Now, I was doing Google on his family tree. His 80th descendant. It's being documented in Taiwan, in one of the, in the museum. The 80th descendant. Talking about Confucius, who has that kind of great virtue that the people spend the time document all his descendants for 80th generation. From my humble opinion, I cannot think of anybody besides Confucius. Of course, we know Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu, from my own knowledge, I think he does not have any descendants. But in Chinese history, Confucius is considered a great saint, a great sage. The generation has been passed on 80 times. And it's being documented pretty well, talking about each generation, the husband and the wife, and who is the descendant, and the descendant married to who and who, so and so. So that tells you how great is Confucius' virtue. When we talk about Kong, in the definition of enormous, it means the virtue is countless, is numerous. So we can relate that to Tao. So all virtue are manifestation of Tao. So if we relate this term into the universe, we can see the virtue of Tao. It's everywhere. It's in every plant and tree, rock and river and mountain, sun and the moon, everything. Everything that you see physically, it's the manifestation of Tao. So virtue, such as Confucius' virtue, can pass on generation. His virtue can pass on from generation to generation. On the other side of virtue is karma. Karma can also pass on generation too, right? There's the family karma, and if the family karma is so bad, it can pass on to the future generation. In our life, if we do have an opportunity to form a family, or now we have a family, it's important to pass on, to teach the virtue to our descendants so that the virtue can pass on. It's important to pass on the virtue than passing on the bad karma. We want to pass on the good karma, which becomes the good virtue. So this concept is very important. Another thing is that the virtue, because it's so big and so huge, sometimes we want to be silent, we want to be speechless about it. Say, for example, I give so much money to the temple or some kind of a charitable organization. It would be better if I just give it away and without mention about it. But if I give it away and start to talk to you about it, last week I gave so much money to the temple, to the church, and this and that, and I want my name to be published on whatever magazine, whatever, then the virtue will be cut into half. And if somebody say, oh, wow, Robert, you did such a great deed. And if Robert say, oh, no, it's something small, don't even mention about it, then that's the real virtue. So the real virtue should not be spoken. The real virtue, it should be in silence. If you want it to grow big, try to keep it quiet. So another definition of Kong means hole, a little tiny hole. As you can see here, in chapter 11, Lao Tzu did talk about the holes in a very specific way. 30 spokes connect to one hub. So this spokes represent all the virtue. Literally, it represents our senses, our body, and the bone, and our behavior. But when our behavior, our body, our sense, our speech manifests, it becomes the virtue. So all the virtue have to come from this whole here. Here I have a diagram. So this is the same concept, but I elaborate the virtue into this diagram. So Kong here, it represents a little hole. So this little hole, it's a manifestation of Wuqi. Although in the hole, it's very small, it's empty, but because it's empty, it cannot be described. Because it's empty, it encompasses the whole universe. So this whole, with its manifestation, it can produce so many virtues. And all the virtue, you see how it's all connected to the whole or the Tao. And since virtue is so important, I do want to give a little explanation on the concept of De. In chapter 38, Lao Tzu did talk about this virtue should not be spoken. Chapter 38, when high virtue, that is what we talk about, the great virtue, when the great virtue is being carried out, is manifested without being named as virtue, it's virtue. So when we perform any high virtue, when we do any great deed, when we do something good to other people, when we do something good to the humanity, we shouldn't name it. We shouldn't, hey, I did this over the weekend. I feel so great. Do you think you want to spread the word for me? So you call everybody, hey, I did this, and I feel so good about it. But when you start to naming this virtue, I feel good about it. And I also want to follow somebody so that I can be named as a philanthropist or be named as a good person. So when it's being named, when the low virtue cannot be forgotten, that is that you did something good and you keep remembering it. I remember I did this. I want to be recognized. I don't want people to forget about my virtue. That is not a virtue. So you see this chapter, I think this is the first two lines of chapter 38. It echoes with our chapter 21 here. And I find this two lines, it's very easy to understand. So the high virtue is the genuine virtue. The genuine virtue should not be spoken. And here the low virtue is the virtue being spoken, being spread, being published, being marketed. Then that becomes the low virtue. And low virtue, you see how it's being shrink. The virtue is being shrink, and it's not considered a virtue. Of course, in our society, this one doesn't work. But Lao Tzu has a very high standard of virtue. What Lao Tzu is teaching us is the genuine virtue. This genuine virtue is not carried out in our society. Our society works a little different. That's why our society is like what we are now. But keep in mind, this is something that we can definitely practice in our life. So the character that I want to talk about is Rong. Rong is acceptance, accommodation, include, contain, and complete. So the concept of Rong is to include everything. Include everything. So here I have a picture of Rong. Rong, literally, it means acceptance, being able to accept others. So on this picture, it's made out of two characters. One is, you see this image here? It represents the house and a little dot on the top. It represents like the roof covering the house. And this character means valley. So imagine there's a huge valley, but then there's a covering the valley. Isn't that huge? Let me ask you, what is in the valley? There's a river going through, there's mountain, and then in the valley, there's different animal, maybe wolf, tiger, and bears. And then there's different plantation, squirrel, different animal. So Rong is to cover the huge mountain, cover the river, and cover the air, the plantation, or the animal. So isn't that great compassion? So this is the concept of Rong. So figuratively, it means great tolerance and great acceptance. When you want to accept other people and when you want to tolerate other people, it does come with full of energy and illumination. Can you endure somebody? Can you accept somebody with your darkness? I'm sure we cannot, because in order to accept others, it's a concept of acceptance. It's also the concept of love and compassion. And when we talk about love and compassion, also talk about the illumination of the universe, the energy and the blessing too. So this concept includes full of illumination, the light, the universal light, the blessing, or the pixel dust. And it's the concept of inclusive, because everything is included. Another meaning is about appearance. Why is it about appearance? Because whatever you can accept, it becomes part of your appearance. Sometimes you have a friend who is in a good mood and this person looks so happy, and you can just see this person before this person speaks. Is this person coming with full of energy, full of light, the light from the face start to shine? But if the person is doomed or depressed, of course you can see. And when this person is doomed or depressed, you can sense this person is lack of energy. So this one is the picture of Gu. This is Gu, the pictogram of Gu. Gu means valley. This part, it represents the river on the path. So on this one, it represents the mountain. So this Gu, to me, the picture of Gu is huge. So in order to practice acceptance, endurance, accommodation, the only way is to immerse oneself into the path of Tao. Our Tao temple is a great example. Some of us go to the Tao temple periodically. It's a great way to immerse ourselves into the Tao physically, because if we can relate that physically, it also helps us to relate that psychologically and mentally too. So the greatest virtue is in wholeheartedly following Tao. So here I want to explain a little further on the character of Chong. Chong, in the introduction, we talk about Chong, it's adhere, follow, totally, and obey the spiritual teacher that you are following with or following Tao. You have to follow completely, follow entirely. If you don't follow entirely, if you don't follow completely, it's not considered Chong, it's not considered following. Talking about virtue, for example, knowledge. Knowledge have to come from the concept of Tao. Knowledge have to follow Tao. If knowledge does not follow Tao, it becomes a scheme. Somebody can have a great knowledge, but if the knowledge is not manifest from the conscience, then it's not a genuine virtue. Nowadays, we receive a lot of email, phone call, Amazon scam, bank scam. Sometimes I receive the be aware scamming message from Wells Fargo, and then there's also Bank of America, a different scam, Amazon scam, Walmart scam, Target scam. So all these are scam. Those people behind the computer, they have great knowledge. They have great electronic knowledge, but their knowledge is not manifest from their conscience. Then the knowledge is not considered Tao. And talking about kindness, can you be kind to somebody and not following Tao? I remember in my early age, I used to, when I pass by in the freeway and sometimes when I see the homeless people, I will give them some money and then just drive away. And later on, people told me that it's not such a good idea because this particular gentleman that I used to give money to, later on I find out he used that money to buy drugs. So sometimes we want to be kind, but we also have to use our wisdom. If I give money to this homeless person, would it help him for emergency purpose, or would this money help him to make him more addicted to drugs? So it's something to think about using our conscience. And also loyalty. Can you be loyal to your boss, but at the same time be unethical? Of course, you can. There's a lot of jobs which require you to be loyal to the company or even to the country. But the thing that you will be doing is unethical, right? Here, I want to talk about brotherhood. This one really touches me. In the previous years, in San Gabriel Valley, there's a lot of break-in. And then when there's a break-in, sometimes the homeowner get killed because the thief or the burglar wants to steal the money. So I'm thinking, wow, such a bad tragedy, and so many incidents happen. And I became to wonder why happened, why this thing happened. And I realized in another article, I understand why this happened. And it's because all this tragedy or this activity were conducted by some kind of gangster. And the gangster, they have this brotherhood mentality. In order to join the gangster, to show that you have the courage, you have this brotherhood, you can be trusted, you have to commit a crime. And that crime need to see red. In other words, you need to carry a knife or a gun to shoot somebody, to shoot the victims, to victimize somebody, whether the homeowner or the homeowner's family. So during those years, I see a lot of break-in, and the break-in has the victim being killed or being hurt. So this is a demonstration of brotherhood. And brotherhood, we can relate this term as a friendship. So brotherhood, you can have a very tight, close brotherhood. On the surface, this term sounds good, but if the activity of the brotherhood, the virtue, is not come from Tao, it's not genuine virtue. So this person here in the picture on the right, this person a salesperson can talk very nicely, but he's lying. This is not genuine honesty. And also this image here, you can see the shadow being a devil, but on the surface, you see this is a genuine gentleman. So the cultivation of Tao help us to understand what is Tao. Tao is to follow everything according to our true nature, according to our true self. And if we can follow our true self, that means we are also following the ancient sentient sages. That means we are also following Buddha. We are following the law of universe. In order to live long, this is the only way to go spiritually and also in terms of our true self too. So here is an image. You can see that the owner is very nice and friendly to the cat. And you see the knife holding on the other hand. So somebody here is going to be killed. So this picture tells us that you want to love your pet, but what about other sentient beings? Are you going to sacrifice other sentient beings for the name of loving your pet? I find this picture interesting. So Lao Tzu talk about the greatest virtue is in wholeheartedly following Tao. In the future verses, Lao Tzu is going to explain what Tao is. But before we go on to that, I want to point out to you that in Lao Tzu many chapters, Lao Tzu talk about Tao. He tried to describe Tao. So in chapter 14, he talked about Tao, which I highlighted in red. Tao is invisible, inaudible, intangible. Although it's all this, it will last continuously and infinitely. But yet it cannot be named, because once it's named, it becomes fixed, and the name will become obsolete over the generation. It's form or formless. It does exist, but here, formless is talking about, in terms of our bodily senses, it's talking about we cannot hear, we cannot see, we cannot touch. And also same thing too, here, existence of non-existence. Non-existence in terms of our senses. And we don't see the front, we don't see the rear. So Lao Tzu in many chapters talks about what Tao is. For the one who is confused, will be more confused, but the one who understands, totally understand what Lao Tzu is talking about. So Lao Tzu go on, what is Tao? It is vague and indistinct. So vague and indistinct, these two characters has been repeated many times. Here, this character here, this character is being repeated, I think 3 times. Yes, 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times. These two characters, they almost mean the same thing, but not quite exactly. So let me explain to you just in the general picture. It's vague and distinct. So it's like you are in a dream. You can see somebody. You can have some kind of fantasy or illusion. The image can probably be seen, but it's not clear. Of course, you may be able to hear it, but not clearly. And of course, you cannot touch it. So it looks like it exists, but it doesn't exist. So I want to give you a story. There are 2 students arguing about does ghost and God exist. So one student say, oh, I don't think ghost and God exist because I never see it. And the other students say, oh no, ghost and God exist. I know it exists. So this student say, well, if you say it exists, then show me. So this person say, I know it exists, but I'm sorry, I cannot show you. So this student say, well, since you cannot show me, in order to prove it exists, you have to take it out, prove it to me, so that I can touch, feel, and see it. And since you cannot prove it, therefore, ghost and God, and including deity, so those does not exist. So this student was disappointed and speechless. And here comes the professor. The professor, he's a philosophy professor. The philosophy professor heard the conversation. The philosophy professor, of course, understand the argument is about. So the philosophy professor say, well, can you tell me what is GHOST? So this student said, it's ghost. And then what is God? This student said, it's God. Then professor asked, how do you know it's ghost? Well, because it's ghost. And how do you know it's God? Because you just spell God to me, God. So the professor said, well, in terms of linguistics, there must be something exist. Then the people invented the language. So if there's no such thing exist, how can these two terms be invented? And since these two terms are being invented, that means the ghost and the God exist. With that saying, that student was speechless and he was disappointed. And I find this story very funny. We all study Tao and we all have some Hindu or Buddhist background. We know ghosts and God exist. It's just that we don't see it from our physical eyes, not because they don't exist. It's because we don't have that ability to see them. It's the concept of vague and indistinct. It's there, but it's not there. We cannot show you, cannot prove it to you. But if we cannot prove it to you, it doesn't mean that it does not exist. I want to explain to you the difference between these two because I find it very interesting. First of all, these two characters. On the left side, it has the character of heart. You see this heart right here? So heart is equal to heart in Chinese, and in English, it means heart. So now let's look at this picture here. So you see this person is kneeling down. This person's heart is physical heart is not together with his body. So this person is a little disoriented, and there's a flame on the top. So the flame supposed to be in the front, but instead the heart is in the front. The flame represents the moving light. This picture is about the light being too strong or being too weak. If it's too strong, then we cannot see what's in the front. If it's being too weak or too dim, then our vision becomes impaired. The most important concept is that the heart is not inside the body, it's outside. Figuratively, it means it's vague, it's not clear, due to the lighting not enough, or it's too strong. And the other character, I find it even more interesting. Here you see the heart, and then you see this heart here, it's right here. So one person have two hearts being separated. Imagine a boy have two hearts on two girls. So that means the boy cannot decide which girl he likes. So this boy is confused, right? In the Chinese saying, we say that if one person stepping on two balls, eventually this person will fail. So this character represents two hearts. And notice that this character on top, you see here, it represents knife. There's a knife, but you don't know which one to go. Knife represents making a decision, like making a choice. So the knife is in the middle of two hearts. This person cannot decide which way he wants to go with. So it's the meaning of indecisive, indistinct, because the vision is impaired, cannot decide. Talking about the boy and two girls, the boy cannot decide which girl he loves. So this is concept of Huang and Hu. So Huang is not being able to see clear, and Hu is confused not being able to make a decision. So Tao, it's vague and indistinct. So this is talking about not being able to describe Tao. It's invisible and it's inaudible. Next one, it's the same character again. 呼吸恍兮，其中有相. Indistinct and vague. Its existence is within. These two characters, it almost mean the same thing. It almost mean the same thing. It can mean confused, absent-minded, indistinct, obscure. It can also mean the confusion, blurry vision, drowsiness, drunkenness. So if somebody is drunk, we will say this person is 恍惚. That means this person is disoriented. So in Chinese, always these two characters go together because it convey the same thing. So its existence is within. So the character of Xiang, it represents the existence and the form. It does have some kind of existence and the form, but it cannot be seen before it's manifest. It can only be seen after it's manifest. For example, I have Tao in me, but if I don't manifest my compassion, my love, then you cannot see my Tao. You just see Joanna. And if I have a poker face, I'm just a regular person. But the moment that you see me smile, the moment that you see me give you the sharing, the moment that you see me, that I wink my eyes, then you can see my manifestation. So the manifestation, it can only be shown once it's being manifest. Tao does have its manifestation, but without manifest, you won't be able to see. I want to give an example as a Tao cultivator because it's difficult to talk about the concept without giving an example. So in terms of Tao cultivator, that is talking about all of us. After we practice Tao, we will look different. The difference comes from our tolerance, comes from our speech. We will behave differently, we will think differently, and when we think differently, it somehow will change our appearance. We become more adorable, we will look more kind, look more sweet, look more honest, and look more humble from our speech. The most important thing is the appearance of our face. Have you ever have a long-term friend that you have not seen for a while? And then you say, well, I haven't seen you for a while and you look totally different. Maybe because of the good energy. So the appearance is about reviving the conscience. Because before we receive Tao, before we practice Tao, we don't really understand there's a true self within. And we don't really understand how to manifest. But once we understand Tao, we understand, oh, Tao should be manifest. If we don't manifest, we waste our conscience. We waste the value of being a human. Being a human is to carry out our virtue. This is our duty. This is our responsibility to carry out our love, carry out our compassion so that we can spread the good energy to other people and use the Tao to guide our fallen false self. So we all have our false self, and our false self is full of a lot of negative energy such as greed, aversion, ignorance, hate, being judgmental, discrimination. But with our Tao spirit, once we manifest, we can pull ourselves out to counter our greed. The best way is to give, because greed is about you have what I don't have, and always compare, oh, why you have and I don't have. I want to take away something that you have so that it becomes what I have. But if we understand Tao, we will change that mentality. Instead of taking away from others, we give to others, then it will help us to offset the mentality of greed. The more that we give, the more that we can cure our greed. The more smile that we can give to others, the less greed we will have. When we cherish other people's success, when we cherish other people's happiness, when we cherish other people's blessing, like this person have good luck in getting a good career, this person just won a lottery, Be happy for them. Give them blessing. Give them happiness. Give them a positive word of encouragement. That will take away the greed from ourselves. And also aversion is hate. So before we cultivate Tao, we have a lot of hate. I don't like you. I don't like what you wear. I don't like this. I don't like that. But after we cultivate doubt, we understand we need to close our mouth and we need to eliminate our complaint. So have less complaint about others. So a lot of time is to endure, to accept others, to accommodate others. So the more accommodation that we have, the less aversion we will have. Also, Lao Tzu say it's indistinct and vague. It cannot be sure, but within the change of our appearance, it's just in our mind. If we can change our behavior, our mind, our speech, definitely we can change our appearance. If you want to look beautiful, handsome, you don't need makeup, you don't need cosmetic surgery. Just practice Tao. Practice Tao from your virtuous heart. Practice wholeheartedly and following Tao. I'm sure you will have a good change of appearance, and people look at you, they will receive awesome good energy, and they will definitely want to stay with you. Vague and indistinct, its substance is within. So this substance is talking about, it's something, it's there. In terms of Tao, the substance is, I would call it the conscience. It's the energy force, it's the movement. So the conscience is always there. But before our cultivation, before we receive Tao, our conscience are being covered by the clouds. People can never see our sunny day. Every time when people see us, they see, oh, it's a gloomy day. A lot of time it's raining, gloomy, it's winter time, depression. A lot of time, people who don't practice on this spiritual path, they spend a lot of time feeling low, feeling depressed. But after we understand about Tao, after we learn that how to manifest Tao, we understand we just need to remove the clouds. What are the clouds made out of? The clouds is made out of bad energy. Bad energy. So if we can remove those bad energy, how do we remove those bad energy? There's many different ways. Going to a temple periodically, go out to observe the beauty of flower, smell the flower, observe the wonder of nature, look at the sun and observe the moon, then it can help us to remove the clouds. And once the clouds are removed, we can see our conscience. And that's when our true self reveal. And we will be able to see our energy, our great energy that connect to the universe. And that energy, it's definitely it's invisible, but we can feel it, right? When we go to the temple, everybody will look the same. People go to the temple to pray to Buddha, pray to God, or to Hindu God, or to whatever deity. Maybe when we go in and when we come out, we look the same, but we do feel that great energy that come upon us. Suddenly we feel happy, we feel blessed, we feel so much energy, we feel illumination, and we just want to go out to say, hi, how are you? I love you so much, and want to greet to everybody. So have you ever had that experience? So that is called substance. That substance, it's vague, it's indistinct. It cannot be shown, but we can feel it. Profound and dark, its essence is within. So the concept of profound and dark is because we are all covered by our false self. We don't have this ability to see because we are living in the lower dimension. If we move to a higher dimension, spiritually, we will be able to see the saints and sages, the deity and the angel. And because that we are in the lower dimension, most of us here are in the third dimension. Third dimension is that we are between the borderline of fourth dimension and the second dimension. Second dimension and the first dimension are like very low. They are very doomed. People with a lot of hate, a lot of aversion. They are very down. People in the third dimension, we are transitioning to the fourth dimension. Sometimes we can feel it, but sometimes we cannot. We are in this dimension. It's profound and dark. We cannot see a lot of spiritual things with our eyes. So it's like going to a tunnel. We don't see it. But in terms of spiritual energy, we can feel it. Just like if we sometimes when we pray, some people when they meditate, they can feel the energy coming through their body. Especially during meditation in our temple, we recommend meditation 3 to 5 minutes using your heavenly portal. So allow that energy to come within you. Also, our true self is within this fourth self, but we can feel the energy. So this character, Jing, is the essence, the most basic element of the essential. So talking about essence, here I list out earth, water, fire, air. Just like I-Ching, I-Ching has 8 elements. In I-Ching, the 8 element is the earth, mountain, water, wind, thunder, fire, lake, and heaven. But the 8 elements in I-Ching are not considered the essential element, because some of the element is within the 8 element of I-Ching, but say thunder. Thunder is part of the wind and the air. And lake, in the lake is made out of water, but that water, underneath the water, there's a lot of fish, a lot of plantation, algae. The most essential element is this 4 here. Another meaning of the essential essence is the extract, such as this image here. This image is an image of rice crop. This one is the rice crop, and then there's a rice being covered by the husk. So the rice husk are the hard substance that protect the covering of the grain and the rice. And then here is the tray that filter the husk. Okay, so this is the example in terms of rice. So what about this one, peanut? So we all tried peanut before. So when we open up the peanut, you can see there's the peanut. Inside the peanut seed, there's the essence. If you put the peanut seed into the ground, it's going to grow peanut, right? That we all know. So this is the most essential part of the peanut, and it's also the fruitation of the peanut. But when you open up that peanut, the essence will be gone, because you destroy the essence. Same thing for a lot of flower seed. This is the picture of a sunflower seed. So the sunflower seed is made out of 2 pieces. A lot of seeds are made out of 2 pieces. So when you open up the piece, the vitality is gone. Isn't that interesting? But if you keep it close, if you just let it sit for years and don't let it grow, it will just continue to sit there for years. But the moment that you put it under the ground, it will start to grow. Isn't this concept profound and dark? But that essence is within. So there's essence within the peanut, and there's essence within the flower seed. But when you open it up, the essence is gone. So in terms of our Tao cultivator, talking about us, what is our essence? We all have this false self. So once the false self is gone, what is left? What is left is the true self. And what is the true self? The true self is made out of all the essence. And the essence is all the virtue that you can name, all the virtue that come from Tao. Love, compassion, humbleness, honesty, yielding, integrity, giving, so many virtues. Here I just name a few. So all this are the essence within the true self. And of course, we can summarize all the virtue into one character, which is Tao. So within the Tao cultivator, us, when we die, what is left? What is left is our Tao, the spirit of Tao. The essence is absolutely genuine. Trust is within. It's genuine. The caricature of genuine talks about it's real. It's not fake. It's like our instinct. Our true self is genuine. It's pure. Just like the sun, when the sun come out from the sky, come out from the clouds, if it's today is a sunny day, the sun that you see is genuine. There is no covering on the sunny days. When something is genuine, it will last for a long time. Just like Tao. Like the sun is genuine, it lasts, it's like being there forever. And because it's genuine, it does not have self. It does not have our false self. Our false self, it's being named false. It's because it's false in terms of temporary, in terms of the situation, the environment can change. Our body are constantly changing, right? I'm constantly aging second by second. And we are all aging. We've been here for more than an hour. And I'm sure we all age 1 hour than before. So our body are changing. And the concept of genuine is that it's always there. It will not change. When we come to the temple, we like to discuss about Tao. I mean, in the Tao environment, there are some people who talk about they are a boss in a company. They have a certain wealth. They drive a nice car, this and that. But whatever we talk about, whatever we can talk, nothing is genuine because all this will go away. Even if you drive a 2022 brand new car, when the year of 2023 comes, it will become old. So nothing is genuine. So this is talking about the concept of Wu Wei versus Yo Wei. So Wu Wei, it's genuine. Yo Wei is man-made. It's being processed intentionally, processed by humans. Talking about our wealth, our status, and the money, car, the jobs. I don't mean that we don't need it. We still need it in this physical realm, but those are just temporary. So Lao Tzu wants us to cultivate the true self as well as the false self, because we do need the false self in order to thrive in this physical realm. When I talk about false self, I don't mean that it's really false, give a big X, forget about our body, forget about our speech. No. Lao Tzu is talking about we need to take care of our true self besides our false self. So Wu Wei is about the manifestation of Tao. It's the genuine Tao. It's the true Tao. It's what's manifest from our true self. So this trust is within. Tao can be trust because Tao gives birth to heaven and earth. We can rely on heaven. We can rely on the sky. Tomorrow when we wake up, we understand the sky is not going to fall on us. And tomorrow when we wake up, or even at this moment, I know that the earth is not going to crash, except earthquake. Except earthquake. And we understand there's 4 seasons. It doesn't matter where you are on this earth. We know there's 4 seasons. There's spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And when the winter finishes, spring comes again. Right? So this is something that we can trust the universe. We can trust the Tao in terms of a universal perspective. In terms of our Tao cultivator, in terms of us, in terms of human, do you trust yourself that you can breathe when you are sleeping? You can trust that your heart will continue pumping when you sleep? We can trust, right? We understand that our body, each cell are breathing as we speak. It does by itself. You don't have to push a button and then it starts to operate. It just operates continuously, nonstop. Another thing that we can be sure is that as long as we cultivate Tao wholeheartedly, truthfully, absolutely, then we can surpass life and death. That's for sure. If we can wholeheartedly follow Tao. if we can submit to Tao, if we can immerse ourselves to Tao. And something that can also be sure is that we can change our life for the better, starting from the current life. Because even the moment that your life is not so satisfying, the moment that you change your mind, the whole thing will change. Because based on the law of reflection, the universal law, what is portrayed outside, it's just a reflection from yourself. Give you an example. Today, if I'm happy, I will see everybody very happy and I want to say hi, hello to everybody. But today, if I have a gloomy day, I will see everybody as shit. I will see everybody as blue, and not even Buddha resonate with me. The people, their reflection is just a reflection from yourself. So if you are not happy with your life, start changing thought from your mind, and you can definitely make a change and have a better life. And once your speech, your attitude change, people around you will change, and people around you, when they change, your destiny will also change too. You will see that there are people who welcome you in their life. They just want to talk to you. So it's very important to change our mentality. Have trust in yourself, have trust in Tao, have trust into your true self, because your true self can guide you. The difference between Tao cultivation before and after is that before we receive Tao, or before we cultivate Tao, our false self is in the driver's seat, and our true self is staying behind in the passenger seat. And then we allow our false self to control us, to control our speech, to control what we see, what we hear. But after we receive Tao, after we cultivate Tao, we understand, oh, there's another true self. So allow that true self to be in the driver's seat, to take us to whatever we want to go, and that our false self to sit behind. So this is the most important concept that you can have starting from changing your life. So we just go over the 4 lines. Lao Tzu talk about indistinct and vague. Its existence is within. Vague and indistinct, its substance is within. Profound and dark, its essence is within. The essence is absolutely genuine, trust within. So with this explanation, Lao Tzu say, since ancient time, its name will not depart. What name is he talking about? He's talking about the Tao, but he does not want to give it a name because earlier he talked about its indistinct, vague, and profound and dark. So the name will not depart. It's been like this since ancient time. It's always called Tao. Lao Tzu does not want to give it a name. It's nameless. It's formless. It's form of formless. It's name of the nameless. In Tao Te Ching chapter 1, Lao Tzu already say that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name cannot be named is not the eternal name, because once it's being named, it becomes obsolete, right? So in the real form, the genuine Tao is what I wrote here. It's formless, it's nameless. It cannot be described. So Lao Tzu used the term, it's vague, it's indistinct. Lao Tzu is reluctant to give it a name, but because there's no definite name given, therefore the substance will last forever. So when something is being formed that we can see, touch, and hear, and when we can name it, it's unreal. And that we can also see that in a lot of Buddha scripture, such as in Diamond Sutra, Buddha talk about everything with form is unreal. We can translate this as everything with names. Everything is being named is also unreal. If all forms are seen as unreal, the Tathagata will be perceived. So when you see all the form is unreal, the Tao can be pervaded. Can you grasp Tao? Everything has Tao, including the peanut, including the sunflower seed. We understand everything has Tao. We can see the Tao. We can see the essence in every sentient being, in every physical object. Tao is everywhere. It's not just in this particular thing. It's everywhere. It's in all the sentient being. It's including you and me. And then we are able to unify them together, because understanding the concept of Tao is to understand the concept of oneness. Although we are all different, but we are the little strengths that makes up the whole carpet. So this concept is difficult to grasp, but once you understand, it's all the ancient Zen sages talking about. So that's why Buddha said that Tathagata will be perceived. If you see everything is unreal, if you see that there's Tao everywhere, and you understand that Tao inside of every form is unreal, every form is temporary, including your body, including the cell phone that I have, including the laptop, everything is temporary. You understand the concept of Tao. Use this to observe great men's virtue. How would I assess the great man's accomplishment with this? So Lao Tzu give a statement. Use this to observe great man's virtue. This character is made out of a door, and the person is within. So there is a gentleman, I would say a librarian, a gentleman or a scholar or a teacher. He is inside a room, try to look at everything inside the room. He's not outside, he's inside the room. He's maybe in a quiet area, try to look at stuff. So try to look at what stuff. Could be a teacher evaluating students' homework. It could be an auditor, a CPA, try to look over the book, accounting book. It could be you and me, try to analyze a person's writing, proofreading, editing. And it could be that somebody try to evaluate something. So this character is to observe, to evaluate something, to give some kind of measurement. Say a teacher wants to evaluate students' performance by looking at the essay. So eventually the teacher will say, okay, this student get an A, this student get a B, B plus, A plus. So it's this kind of behavior, not just to observe, it's to evaluate, to give a measurement, to categorize. Oh, this, you get the 90%, you get 89%, or you get a C. So how do I use this to evaluate great men's virtue? Great men here is talking about, in Chinese, it's called 各位父老. It's a respect term to call a gentleman. In Spanish, I think it's called señor, or female señorita, señora. And so it's to refer to the great man's virtue, which is the cultivator's virtue. We can say it's a great Zen and sages. How do I evaluate all the great Zen and sages, Buddha? There's here I give an example: Buddha, Bodhisattva, Arhat, Pratika. Here we can put ourselves inside too, because we are Buddha in the Buddha camp. I'm sorry, we are in how should I say, boot camp of Bodhisattva. So how would Lao Tzu evaluate all these people here, especially since we are studying Tao? So how would Lao Tzu evaluate the cultivator? Imagine we are all in Tushita heaven. In Tushita heaven, there's different institute. There's a different classroom for different level of cultivator. So what makes you a higher level than me? What makes you a lower level than me? Why are we all in different class? So what is the benchmark? What is the assessment? Lao Tzu say, how would I assess all the cultivators' accomplishment? How would I assess all the bodhisattvas to be accomplishment. We are all in this Buddha trainee position. How would I assess the Buddha trainee's accomplishment? Is to use this. Use what? This. This is referring to adhering to Tao, when following Tao totally, wholeheartedly, entirely, completely. So this go back to the first line. 孔德之容为道是从. With this, adhere, how much do you practice Tao? Do you practice Tao genuinely, wholeheartedly? And I do want to mention about this character here. 众仆, even though Lao Tzu used the character 仆, which represent male, I want to say that it also represents male and female. Chinese text, it just talk about male. But when we read it, we should interpret as male and female. And also, when Lao Tzu talks about sentence sages, I want you to extend the meaning to not just Buddha, Bodhisattva, Arhat, and Pratika. I also want you to extend the meaning to us. Lao Tzu is talking to us. Use this to observe Joanna's virtue. How would I assess Joanna's virtue with this? So you want to put yourself in there as if Lao Tzu is talking to you. Lao Tzu is not talking to other people. Lao Tzu is teaching to you right in front of your face, so that we immerse ourselves into the teaching of Lao Tzu. So the level of comprehension of Tao and how many virtues you accomplish, it's really a benchmark to evaluate one's performance. How much are you following Tao? Since the ancient time, there has not been anybody not following Tao and become sentient sages. In other words, if you want to become sentient sages, if you want to surpass life and death, if you want to change your destiny, change your life, this is the only way to go. Here we almost come to the end of our session. So again, the most important verse from this chapter is the first line. The greatest virtue is in wholeheartedly following Tao. And on this two lines here, Lao Tzu explained Tao exists and there's substance. You just have to feel it, observe it spiritually with your conscience. Feel the essence, the substance, the energy from the universe. So you just have to go to the natural place to observe the nature wonder. You can see. Doesn't have to go out too far. Taking a morning walk, evening walk to observe the flower and the plants in your backyard will also help you to immerse yourself into the Tao environment too. And this line, profound and dark, its essence is within. It talks about the vitality. Without the vitality, there's no essence. So the essence allows everything to grow. Talking about Tao cultivator, our vitality is within our true self. And that's what allows us to live continuously, forever, eternally, and everlasting. Next one, trust is within. It talks about the function of Tao. It talks about how the four seasons operate and how we can trust Tao, that we can continue to breathe even when we are sleeping. Next one, its name will not depart. Lao Tzu is reluctantly given a name. He gave a name of Tao, but it's not what his intention is, but he does have to give it a name so that we understand what name it is. This name is long-lasting. So is our true self. So if we can live our life with our true self, following the great virtue, following Tao, our name will not depart. So besides this chapter, Lao Tzu in other chapter also talks about Tao. Lao Tzu explains Tao in different aspects, try to help his follower understand Tao. So chapter 1 is the best example. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal name. And here it goes on, Tao is non-existence and it exists. So people who first come on learning Tao Te Ching get very confused. But I hope that none of you are confused. And then at the end of chapter 1, it say that Tao is a mysterious thing and it's mystery of mysteries. It's really a mystery, but I hope that so far we are in chapter 21. We understand what Tao is. Tao can be described in the universe perspective, heaven and earth perspective, and of course, it's also in us too. In Tao Cultivator, I can say that the synonym of Tao is conscience and true self. So in chapter 4, Lao Tzu also talk about Tao in a different perspective too. Here it talks about deep and faithfulness. In the end, here it talks about Tao is profound and it seems to appear. And then in chapter 6, it talks about Tao in a different perspective. As Tao is the spirit of valley. It's mysteries, female. It's called the root of heaven and earth. It's continuously utilized. It will never exhaust. So here comes to the end of the last slide. Thank you so much. And I thank your participation to be with me in the last 1.5 hours. If mistakes were made or said during today's sharing session, I ask the forgiveness from the Heavenly Mother, Buddha Maitreya, Jigong Buddha, Patriarchs, Sijun Simu, Grand Master, and Senior Master and Junior Master. Thank you for your participation. Thank you.